Chicago, 1998. Inside the towering walls of the United Center, nearly 25,000 fans packed the arena for a night of celebration, soul, and Stevie Wonder's unmistakable magic. The crowd buzzed with infectious energy, glowing with anticipation as the band launched into the opening of Signed, Sealed, Delivered. The lights flashed, horns blasted, and Stevie, radiant behind his keyboard, felt the room lifting into joy. But in the middle of that electricity, something broke the rhythm. A shift, a disturbance, a sound out of place. It was faint at first, a thud, a gasp, a wave of murmurs rippling through one section of the floor seats. Stevie froze mid-phrase, his hands hovering above the keys. On stage, everything continued, lights swirling, drums pulsing, but Stevie felt something else entirely, a presence trembling, a spirit weakening. Something was wrong. He lifted his hand sharply. "Stop! Stop the music!" he commanded. The band fell silent instantly. Confusion washed through the arena. Fans looked at one another, uncertain why one of the greatest performers alive had halted a show in full stride. Stevie angled his head, turning toward the source of the disturbance with a stillness so precise it felt supernatural. "Someone needs help," he said into the microphone, voice low but unwavering. A hush spread through the stadium as security rushed down the aisle. In the fifth row, a woman named Marilyn, 63 years old, slumped sideways in her seat. Her hands trembling violently, her breath shallow. People waved their arms frantically. "Here! Help her!" The crowd parted like water as medics pushed forward. Stevie stood from his bench, gripping the microphone, his expression tightening with concern. "Bring the house lights up," he said. The arena brightened, revealing thousands of faces suddenly pulled into anxiety. Marilyn's daughter sobbed beside her, begging her to stay awake. When the medics reached her, Stevie stepped away. From the keys, instinct guiding him more than sight. "Can you hear me?" he called gently toward the chaotic section. The sound of the room condensed into a single heartbeat. Marilyn weakly lifted her head, eyes glassy, searching the air for the voice she'd grown up loving. "Mr. Stevie," she whispered, barely audible. And with that fragile sound, the entire arena felt something shift. An understanding that the show everyone came for had transformed into something far more profound. Stevie took a slow step forward, guided not by sight, but by instinct, by the pull of a soul in distress. The arena was so silent that the hum of the speakers felt deafening. Fans pressed their hands to their mouths, watching as security and medics surrounded Marilyn. Her breaths were shallow, uneven, and her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her daughter, Janelle, knelt beside her, whispering through tears, "Mama, stay with me. Please stay with me." Stevie's voice, warm but urgent, traveled gently across the floor seats. "Sweetheart, keep talking to her. Let her hear your voice." Janelle nodded, stroking her mother's hair as paramedics checked her pulse. The sight of this frail woman collapsing in the middle of what was supposed to be a joyful night brought a heaviness to the room, one that wrapped around everyone present. But Marilyn fought to speak. She tried to lift her head. "Stevie, I'm sorry," she whispered, as if apologizing for interrupting the show. The apology pierced Stevie straight through. He raised a hand, shaking his head. "No, no, darling," he said into the mic, his voice thick with emotion. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing in this world." His words washed over the arena, grounding the fear that had been building like a storm. The medics exchanged glances. Her pulse was erratic, her breathing unstable. They began preparing a stretcher, but when Marilyn heard the soft wheels clicking onto the floor, she panicked, trying to sit upright. "No, please, don't take me away," she gasped. "I came here to hear him sing." Her voice cracked on the last word. Janelle broke down sobbing, clutching her mother's hand. Stevie's chest tightened. He swallowed hard and gripped the microphone stand until his knuckles turned white. "Marilyn," he called, his voice trembling at the edges. "You're not leaving this room without knowing something." The crowd leaned in, their hearts lodged in their throats. Stevie continued, "If you came here to hear me sing, then hear me now." Slowly, carefully, he approached the edge of the stage, guided by a security guard who extended a steadying arm. The arena watched in stunned silence as Stevie took the microphone off the stand and lowered himself to one knee. "I'm right here with you, sweetheart," he whispered, "and you're not alone." Even the medics paused, taken aback by the intimacy of the moment. One man reaching across an ocean of fear to anchor a woman fighting for breath. The crowd exhaled as one, shaken, emotional, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen next. Stevie leaned forward, steadying himself as he reached his hand toward the edge of the stage. A security guard guided him until his fingers hovered directly above Marilyn's trembling shoulder. He knelt there, thousands of eyes on him, the entire arena holding its breath until his hand finally found her. Marilyn let out a small, broken sob at the touch, her body relaxing just enough for the medics to ease their grip. Stevie felt her trembling beneath his palm, the fragility of her frame, the fear laced into every shallow inhale. "Marilyn," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "I'm right here. Breathe with me, okay?" She nodded, tears streaking down her face. Her daughter, unable to speak through her own sobs, rested her forehead against her mother's arm. The sight of mother and daughter crumbling in each other's presence sent fresh waves of emotion rolling through the arena. Stevie shifted, still kneeling at the stage's edge. "Bring the mic down," he murmured to the guard beside him. The man lowered the microphone until Stevie could hold it in one hand, while keeping his other hand resting gently on Marilyn's shoulder. "All right," Stevie said softly. "We're going to calm this whole place down together." His voice carried across the room with a warmth that felt almost physical, like a hand pressed lightly against the heart. "Everybody, take a deep breath with us." And 25,000 people did exactly that. A long, trembling inhale swept across the United Center, followed by a whispered exhale. Marilyn followed it too, barely, shakily, but she followed. Her chest rose a little fuller, her shoulders eased, her pulse steadied by the faintest margin. Then Stevie did something no one expected. Still kneeling, still holding Marilyn like the center of the universe, he lifted the mic to his lips and began to hum. Not a song, not yet. Just a soft, low, steady hum that vibrated through the arena like a healing current. The band, sensing his intention, remained frozen in place. No instruments, no accompaniment, just Stevie's voice, warm, deep, and unwavering, filling the silence with something closer to prayer than performance. Marilyn's breathing softened, her eyelids fluttered, the trembling in her hands quieted as the sound wrapped around her like a blanket. People in the audience covered their mouths, tears sliding freely down their cheeks. Some reached for strangers' hands, others bowed their heads. It wasn't a concert anymore, it was communion. Stevie hummed a little louder, his voice steady as a lighthouse in a storm. And as he continued, Marilyn's breathing eased into a fragile but steady rhythm, her fear melting under the weight of his voice. When Stevie felt Marilyn's breathing begin to steady beneath his hand, he let the hum blossom into a melody, soft, familiar, comforting. It was the opening line of "Ribbon in the Sky," but stripped of its grandeur, sung like a lullaby meant for just one person in the room. Marilyn's lips quivered, her eyes opened wider, focusing not on what she could see, but on what she could feel. Stevie Wonder, her musical hero, kneeling on the edge of a stage, singing not to her, but for her. Her daughter, Janelle, covered her mouth, tears streaming like rain. She whispered, "Mama, he's singing just in for you." Marilyn's chest rose with a fuller breath than any she'd taken since collapsing. "I hear him," she whispered, voice shaky but alive. The medics exchanged glances, surprised, relieved, stunned at the transformation unfolding before them. Stevie kept singing, his voice weaving through the quiet like a thread repairing a torn heart. But then, as the melody hung suspended in the air, Marilyn lifted a trembling hand toward him. She wasn't reaching for help. She was reaching in gratitude, in disbelief, in aching emotion. Stevie felt her fingertips brush his wrist and immediately curled his hand around hers, holding it delicately. "I've got you," he whispered. The arena broke open. Sobs echoed from every direction, grown men wiping their faces, couples clinging to each other, entire rows unable to hold back the waterfall of emotion. Even the security team, usually stoic and unshakable, stood with reddened eyes. For a single moment, 25,000 people were united, not by a song, but by the fragility of one woman's life and the kindness of the man kneeling before her. Marilyn let out a soft whimper, overwhelmed. "I didn't want to ruin your concert," she whispered through tears. Stevie shook his head gently. "You didn't ruin anything," he said. "You reminded us why music exists, to lift each other when we fall." Marilyn's daughter cried harder at those words, pressing her forehead to her mother's arm. The medics stabilized Marilyn's breathing, preparing to move her carefully, but she tightened her grip on Stevie's hand. "Please, just one more moment," she pleaded softly. Stevie nodded, never breaking contact. "You can have as many moments as you need," he promised, and he began to hum again, low and steady, while the arena listened in perfect stillness, witnessing a moment that would echo in their hearts for the rest of their lives. The medics signaled that they were ready to lift Marilyn onto the stretcher, but Stevie raised a gentle hand, silently asking them to wait just a little longer. He kept her hand in his, thumb brushing lightly over her knuckles, grounding her, steadying her. "Marilyn," he said softly, "I want you to listen to me, okay?" She nodded weakly, her eyes swimming with emotion. Stevie continued, "You are not alone. Not tonight. Not ever." A trembling smile appeared on Marilyn's lips, small, fragile, but real. Her daughter Janelle cried harder, covering her face as the weight of the moment sank deeper into her chest. In the crowd, more people wiped their eyes, stunned by the tenderness unfolding before them. The entire arena felt as though it were kneeling beside that stretcher, offering its collective strength to a woman who needed it most. Stevie adjusted his position, then slowly began to sing again, but this time he chose a different melody. "Don't you worry about a thing," but softened beyond recognition, stripped down to something intimate and bare. Marilyn's breath caught in her throat the moment she recognized it. "That's my favorite," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Stevie leaned closer, forehead nearly touching the back of her hand. "I know," he whispered back. "Your daughter told me." Janelle gasped, covering her mouth as fresh tears spilled down her face. She hadn't realized Stevie had heard her earlier when she'd begged the medics to keep her mother awake long enough to hear the song she loves. Stevie had listened, and now he was giving Marilyn exactly what she needed to hold on. As Stevie's voice wrapped around her, Marilyn's breathing deepened, not fully strong, but steadier than before. The medics exchanged relieved looks. One of them whispered, "Her vitals are improving." But everyone knew it wasn't medicine doing the work. It was connection. It was love. It was the healing power of a human voice reaching into the heart of another. Stevie finished the last gentle notes and gave Marilyn's hand a soft squeeze. "You with us, sweetheart?" he asked. Marilyn nodded slowly, tears slipping into her hairline. "Yes, I'm here." The whole arena exhaled, as though they'd all been holding their breath together. Stevie smiled, a quiet, grateful smile only those closest to the moment could see. And in that instant, 25,000 strangers felt like family. At last, the medics stepped forward again, this time moving carefully, respectfully, knowing they weren't just treating a patient, they were helping carry someone who had become the emotional center of an entire arena. "We need to get her checked out," one medic said gently. Marilyn nodded, finally ready, but when they began lifting her, she panicked for a split second, her hand slipping from Stevie's. "Wait, please, don't let go," she whispered. Stevie immediately reached out again, finding her hand by instinct more than guidance. "I'm right here," he said softly. "I'm not letting go." Her trembling eased. The crowd, watching with aching hearts, softened into a hush so deep it felt like they were guarding the moment with their silence. Slowly, the medics transferred her onto the stretcher. Stevie kept her hand in his the entire time, anchoring her with nothing more than presence and compassion. Janelle followed, clutching her mother's free hand, but her tears turned to something quieter, relief, gratitude, awe. She whispered, "Mama, you're okay. You're okay." Marilyn squeezed her daughter's fingers as Stevie gave her hand one last tender squeeze. "Marilyn," he said softly, "you've just shown everyone in this room what strength looks like." A soft murmur of emotion rippled through the crowd. As the medics began rolling her toward the tunnel, Marilyn blinked up at Stevie as if memorizing the sound of his voice. "Thank you for stopping everything," she whispered. Stevie shook his head. "Sometimes the music has to stop so the heart can speak." The words hit the audience like a wave. People bowed their heads, clutched their chests, wiped fresh tears they didn't bother to hide. As the stretcher moved farther down the aisle, Stevie stood at the edge of the stage, head tilted as though following her heartbeat through the crowd. The band didn't move, the lights didn't change, the moment was too sacred to break. And then something happened that no one expected. The entire arena, spontaneously and without prompting, began to applaud. Not loudly, not wildly, but softly, rhythmically. A warm, rolling applause like a giant heartbeat of encouragement, lifting Marilyn as she was taken to safety. Janelle looked back in disbelief, pressing a hand to her chest. Marilyn, tears streaming sideways into her hair, managed a trembling smile. Stevie stood with one hand pressed over his own heart, bowing his head as if accepting the love on Marilyn's behalf. In those seconds, the United Center wasn't a concert venue. It was a sanctuary, a family, a living, breathing community united around one woman's fragile courage and one man's unwavering compassion. And when the stretcher finally disappeared into the tunnel, Stevie Wonder didn't immediately return to his keyboard. He stayed there, still as a prayer, knowing the music could wait. Humanity could not. The arena remained suspended in silence, a hush so deep it bordered on reverence. Stevie stood, unmoving, at the edge of the stage, one hand still pressed over his heart as the last glimpse of Marilyn's stretcher vanished into the tunnel. For several long seconds, no one, not the band, not the audience, not the crew, dared break the fragile stillness that lingered in her wake. Then Stevie inhaled slowly, lowering his hand and lifting his face toward the microphone with a kind of calm that only arrives after witnessing something sacred. "My friends," he began, voice warm but trembling, "you just showed one of the most beautiful acts of love I've ever seen." His words rippled across the arena, soft but powerful, sending fresh waves of emotion through the crowd. Some people nodded, others cried harder. Many simply held the hands of the strangers beside them, feeling more connected than they had moments earlier. Stevie continued, his voice cracking slightly. "We come to concerts to sing, to dance, to forget our troubles. But sometimes life walks right into the room and reminds us what really matters." He paused, letting the truth sit heavy in the air. "That woman, our sister Marilyn, had a moment tonight where she didn't know if she could hold on. And all of you, every single one of you, held her up." Applause erupted, not loud, not wild, but soft and sincere. Stevie smiled through his tears. "That," he said, "is the kind of music the world needs more of." The band members, still emotional themselves, bowed their heads in agreement. For a few seconds, Stevie simply breathed, centering himself after the emotional weight of the last 15 minutes. Then he stepped back to his keyboard, gently brushing his fingers over the keys, as though reminding them they too were part of the healing. He played a chord, slow, tender, almost fragile. The arena reacted instantly. Something loosened, something exhaled. Stevie let silence settle for another heartbeat before saying, "This next song is for Marilyn, and for anyone in this room who's ever needed a hand to hold." Without waiting for applause, he began playing the opening notes of "Love's in Need of Love Today." The band joined softly, carefully, as if not to disturb the emotional thread still woven through the air. The song filled the United Center like a blessing, warm, compassionate, unifying, and the audience sang with him, thousands of voices rising in a gentle swell that felt less like performance and more like prayer. Even ushers, security guards, and stagehands mouthed the lyrics with tears in their eyes. For the rest of the night, the energy in the arena remained transformed, softer, kinder, more connected, and long after the show ended, fans would tell the story of how Stevie Wonder stopped everything, music, lights, rhythm, time itself, to hold one woman's life in the center of his hands, a moment of humanity so powerful, so real, that it still moves people decades later.